Sorry about that earlier, Mike. You got caught up in the family conversation. My computer has gone crazy, so I'm on my wife's computer.
Oh, accidentally logged on earlier? Is that what happened?
Yeah, my son came home. He's the IT guy, so he got me on my wife's computer Zoom. Something happened to my touch screen on my other laptop, so I'm using my wife's.
I don't know if it matters to you, Doug, but you're going to need a camera light in front of your face for anyone to really make anything out. I don't know if you care, but
yeah. Let me see if I can get a little more light in here.
okay. Once again, reminder for everyone: if you'd like to participate in public comment, we need you to raise your hand. That doesn't mean literally hold your hand up to the camera. That means open up the participants panel, which you can do by going to the bottom of your screen. There should be an icon or a button for participants. Click on that. A white panel should open up to your right. It'll show the participants panel. In the bottom right, there should be a button to raise your hand. And I'll have those instructions posted throughout the meeting on my screen. So in case you get lost, you can just check out my screen. But yeah, if you want to participate in public comments, 5 minutes to address the council. Get those hands raised and I'll put you down in a list. There's a hard close at 7 p.m. So if you don't get those hands raised by 7 p.m., by the moment the meeting starts, the opportunity will have passed. And when Pete calls for public comment, I'll unmute people in the order that I see the hands get raised. And do remember to keep those hands raised until I lower them so we can keep track of everything. There's Katie.
Hi, everybody. Hi,
Hi,
Mike.
Katie.
Hi, Pete.
Hi.
Hi, Doug. Hi, Mary Jane.
Hi, how are you? Long time no see.
I know it's been hours. feels like
minutes.
so much.
Maybe minutes.
I know.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor.
Evening, Mayor.
What's happening, Tom?
Oh, hi, Tom.
Hi, Katie. Hi, Mary Jane.
Hey, Doug, Katie, Mary Jane.
Douglas, how are you?
What's everybody?
We're okay.
Katie, very warm on the mountain tomorrow.
Oh, really? Good. All right.
Oh, yes.
I can get out my shorts. Okay. Good to
And
know.
t-shirts.
Walter.
Shorts
Good.
and t-shirts. And
Okay.
flip-flops.
Okay.
Melt snow.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Hey, Chris.
Ah.
Hey, Mike.
Ah.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, everyone.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Chris.
Hi, Tom.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Katie. Good evening.
Be right back.
Weren't we just here?
Yes. That we said a couple minutes ago.
Right? Just a few.
All right, we are missing Stephanie.
It's like the Brady Bunch, where you can look up, down, sideways.
See who's behind me.
There's Stephanie.
Right. He's gonna be in the meeting.
I don't know how Mike says skinny. He's always eating.
Nahum,
Well, he's always eating.
you really need to ask that question. I mean, when he burns 8,000 calories a day, he can consume 8,000 calories.
The man of perpetual motion.
Who burns 8,000 calories a day? Mike?
Nahum,
Oh, who else?
yeah.
Not me.
Me, I do.
Yes, Stephanie, I thought I saw you when I was out going around the track. I didn't want to pass you though. I think I'd stay back.
You're watching me from your car.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, right. That's about it. That's about the truth.
There we are. How are you doing?
Good. How you
Hi,
doing?
Dave.
Hi,
Not
Dave.
bad.
How are you?
How are you?
So, hey, Chris, are you a Sabres fan as well?
Well, I try to be, but it's really hard.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Yes,
I try
pretty
to be.
painful.
All right, we
I
are,
watched the Islanders game the other.
No.
day.
No.
all right, we are 1 minute to go. So this is last call to raise those hands for public comment. Pete, just so you're aware, right now I have 0 for public comment.
Okay.
Anyone who's watching at home on YouTube, you guys are going to have to join the Zoom meeting to get in. The agenda is in the description of the video. So if you want to get into the Zoom meeting information is in the agenda.
So I don't see Michael Gold. Is he the only one I'm missing?
He's away
He's away. Okay.
from us.
Who could go away from us?
Well, I don't know why either, but
There's Randy. And when he knows.
Okay, Mike, we're at 7:00.
All right. I got nobody, so it's your turn.
Okay. So we'll start with the pledge. Mike Nahum, could you lead us in the pledge, sir?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America,
and to
the
the
republic
for
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
And have a moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, and to the family of Bob Golombeski, who passed on February 24th. Bob was a 48-year volunteer firefighter with Water Witch. Number 2, he also spent many years as a volunteer EMT and chief in the Milford ambulance. He was also a CPR instructor and also volunteered with the American Red Cross. May his memory be eternal. Thank you. Katie?
Is there any public comment?
Right now, I have no hands
okay.
are raised.
Okay.
So
First, I'd like to suspend the rules to add item 5A, mayor's comments.
Second.
Any discussion on the addition? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Any abstentions? Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to make the motion to approve the items on our consent agenda. Items 3A, B, C, D, and E.
Second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I would just like to read what we have because there are some gifts. The prior minutes, tax collector, we all saw those. Social Services is requesting permission to accept a donation of $7,500 from the Ellen Knowles Harcourt Foundation. It would be shared evenly among the Farmers Market Collaborative, the Hope Fund, and the Community Fuel Bank, and they thank the foundation very much. Sullivan Farm asks to accept a donation of $5,000 from the Harcourt Foundation to be specifically used to create a fence and mulch layer for a new vegetable garden. This $5,000 would be placed in their revenue account number 10441-903-44118, increasing the expenditure account by $5,000. Parks and Rec is asking for permission to accept a donation of $5,000 from the New Milford Cricket Club on Erickson Road in New Milford. It's to be used toward the construction of a permanent cricket pitch and batting cage with a practice pitch and other cricket-related enhancements at Clatter Valley. Parks and Rec is requesting the donation be put in a fund decided proper by the Director of Finance. They also, Parks and Rec, are requesting permission to accept a donation of $250 from Collins Hannafin Attorneys in Danbury that was used to purchase garlands, lights, and bows for holiday decorations downtown, and a donation of $25 from Michael Collins Realty, which was used also for garland and lights. And they'd like to request that the donations from those two, the $250 and the $25, be put into the revenue account 335-10000-48400, which is Parks and Recreation Gift Fund. And I guess that does include the item of $5,000 from the New Milford Cricket Club as well. They didn't specify, but I assume it is part of that. So there you have all of them. We have a motion and a second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Real quick question. Up on Sullivan Farm, is that what they have marked up on the back hill? Is that the location they're going to use this? Are they expanding over to the other hill? Do you know?
No, this is going to be towards where it normally is, kind of in back over that way.
Oh, behind, right.
Yep.
Okay, so it's not on the other side of that waterway.
No.
Okay.
Waterway.
Dave?
Yeah, these are wonderful donations and very, very generous. And I know the council joins me in thanking everybody for these.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I concur.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Okay. Item 4, Dr. Levin would give us a COVID-19 update.
Good evening.
Evening, Doctor.
Good evening.
Mayor and Council, there's a couple things. I'll try and be crisp. It looks like things are moving very briskly this evening, so I'll try and match your pace. I'm looking forward to report later on about New Milford, so I won't touch Connecticut except to say the following. US population, we got about 10% all vaccinated, and in Connecticut 10% as well. So we're doing well on the national averages as well. Important comment about this, the CDC guidelines have changed recently. And the important about that is that it's really very much a situation where if you're vaccinated and fully vaccinated and 12 days later, or 2 weeks later actually, they're encouraging people and saying that you can be together at home and face to face. This is really terrific. In some ways, it's a super incentive, and the way I believe it, I look at this is not only is it good, but it also helps us as we encourage people to get vaccinated, because we really are in a bit of a race. It's a race against the penetration of the UK variant, that's B117. That variant has swept across UK, and now it's starting to get a foothold here. And so the more you can get vaccinated, the faster you are, the better chance we have of crushing that one. So all the efforts we're doing in town and around the state, it's very important we get this one laid to rest as soon as possible and everybody vaccinated. Then I think there's a couple things which are, important about this process. We're seeing a lot of people saying, well, there's multiple places to register. Well, around the country, that confusion is going to be the case. However, no matter what, people should be registering. And this chaos will pass. We won't keep these systems. One system won't talk to another. But the key is to get as many people vaccinated as soon as is possible. And while these systems don't talk to each other, they probably never will do. Remember, it's key for everybody to understand that these registration systems will vanish. We're in an acute phase, and they will go away eventually when we've defeated the pandemic. So I think there's sort of some general points there that I wanted to make. The second two things are actually kind of interesting for everybody, and they're new information, which I don't think you may have seen, but it is important. I've had a couple questions in the past about why there are no new medicines. Currently, there's only two. One is the old steroid and the dexamethasone, and the second is actually the Gilead drug. And then a few other little bits and pieces. But those are the drugs that are out there. They are trailing the vaccines until today, when Merck announced for the first time that it's got what looks like a very safe, although early, indicated it's got a complexly named medicine called molnupiravir. Don't ask me to pronounce it properly, but that's good. They've run a really good small 200-person trial, and what they see in that, those are people in hospital with COVID. It actually clears you of COVID, and it looks like you recover much faster. So if this continues, and Merck is a very conservative organization, this is the first indication of a oral clinical drug that can actually fight the virus. And that's good news. So that's, we're starting to see the other side of the industry rev up. Oral drugs, not vaccines. Prevention, one thing, the next thing is treatment. And then at the same time, the next piece of interesting news is for those people who take statins. And, a goodly proportion of the adults who are at risk take statins. And it transpires that as we've been studying hospitalized patients who are on statins, they're a good 50% less likely to have complications or death if they're hospitalized and are on statins. Now, the reason for that is that statins reduce inflammation, have a number of effects on the vasculature, and it's really an interesting observation, which, if it proves out over tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, will be a positive. And so I think just two pieces of new facts on medicines. And I'll stop them because I think you're pretty much up to date with most of what's going on, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Dr. Levin. Mike?
Yeah, being a small business owner and this thing's starting to drag on and it's really been difficult. Once we have the majority of the 55 and older people vaccinated and people with underlying issues, why aren't we opening up a lot quicker than, let's say, our state is allowing us to? Because there's so many issues being related right now, and I know this is not for you, Dr. Levin, but for economists. There's so many issues being created from the unemployment rate in some of these states that refuse to open up that it's going to start overwhelming with what we've been trying to accomplish through COVID mediation.
The variant.
So, Mike, you've got right now there's 74% of people over the age of 75 have been fully vaccinated, and it drops down to 17 over the age of 55, between 55 and 64. So the ones at most risk are now are getting there. We're getting there, and it's looking good. The problem with that is that until you get to about 70% and a good herd immunity, you are going to let these variants creep in. And when the variants creep in, they'll take a hold. And so you've got to get it up there further before you let the variants get a hold. But I am confident, if we're able to continue to vaccinate at the rate we are, very shortly you'll see the governor and various parties around the country start to open up in a way that you'd like to see and I'd like to see. But until we get that, as many people vaccinated as we can and herd immunity, we still are at very severe risk. And we can't allow that. We're watching, what's interesting is you watch the rates around the country dip down and flatten. They're not keeping on going down. It's the dip down and flatten, Mike, that's a problem. So to your point, we've got a lot of people over the age of 55 vaccinated, not enough yet, but we will get there shortly.
But my question is, all right, let's use 55 as that number. And once 55 and over are vaccinated, you're telling me, well, we got to hold off because we don't know about these variants. There's so many things we don't know, but what things we do know is what this lockdown is doing to the economy and the small business owners. And it seems like there's always a reason why we have to put it off. And as I said, as a small business owner of two small businesses, it's extremely frustrating how much the government's had a control on us for this long of a time. And it doesn't seem like there's any point. If we get to this point, we'll open up. It's like this medium, I don't know, let's see what this and let's see that. I'm trying to find out if there's going to be hard numbers. And if we get this percentage of 55 and older vaccinated, we can open up, because you look at the numbers, and once you get below 55, it's really not a high risk disease for people. And so you just wonder. I mean, I understand for a lot of people that have secure incomes and jobs, let's wait as long as we possibly can. But for a lot of other people, it's just very difficult.
Totally agree, Mike. And you and I are on the same page there. We need some definitive facts as to when you will open up. Look, I think the CDC is doing a darn good job on getting to that. The one statement we do know is you need that 70% to get some form of immunity. Right now, as I say, in the state, we're not quite where we need to be. The state, as I say, and the 55 to 64, we've only got 17% of people vaccinated there. We're going to get there. I mean, if people are behaving like we're doing in New Milford, we're going to get there fast. And then I think your question needs to be asked very hard. Okay, what risk now do we have of opening? And I'm sure that question will be asked.
Yeah, and along those same lines, if you're under the age of 30, everything about this vaccine seems to be going the way it should be. But normal vaccines, it's a 5-year plus testing, and this is 9 months. For people 17 and under or 30 and under, why would we want to actually even push a vaccine that we really don't know the long-term ramifications of the problems that we have with it? When their chance of anything really bad happening in those age groups are minute. So I'm just wondering why we're trying to, if we're going to be pushing to that age group, but once we get down to those ages, we say, you know what, we're in good shape, and the people that haven't gotten the vaccine don't have any real risk of the disease. It seems like the risk of something happening from getting COVID is a lot lower than an unknown vaccine.
Well, it's a good question, but I think your question is that the speed of development is not matched with our knowledge about the safety of the vaccine. What we see now is actually something quite remarkable. We saw early indications of safety. You recall last year when we started talking about this, I said to you, you need to have enough people in the trial to give you an indicator. And at that stage, we had 60, 70,000 people in these two trials. And on the basis of those 60 or 70,000 people, the drugs were approved. Well, we're way beyond that right now. We've got 31 million people fully vaccinated. That's 31 million. There are no signs of major problems with the vaccine to date. Nothing. So I think with that, I think at this stage, even the most conservative of people, as I am, I'm a real stickler for safety, would say to you, I'm pretty convinced this looks like safety. And so I'd be prepared to take it down to the 12-year-olds, actually. I don't yet know about the young guys below 12. Nobody knows about those, and they clearly are not nearly as at risk. So that's where the judgment will really come in. But those who are at school, 12 and above, look, 31 million doses have been 31 million fully vaccinated people without any significant setbacks
it's still under a year, though. I mean, for any results of what's long-term effects, it's only been a year. You don't have any data for over a year on this stuff.
Absolutely true, but it's one of the funny things about medicine. It's a trade-off with numbers of people versus incidence of events. And the whole thing about a clinical trial is you take it for a long time if you can. But if you can't, you get as many people as you can to see what might pop up. At this stage, that we're way beyond what would be considered a reasonable number of people. 31 million fully dosed people, we would have been seeing major complications by now.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Levin? Chris?
Yeah, Dr. Levin, thanks for coming on as usual. The Merck treatment, so I think you said there was a case study of 200 people. So it sounds like we're a long way away from commercializing that. Hazard a guess on how long?
Boy, Chris, if you and I had this conversation 1 year and 3 months ago, I would have said 6 years. Okay. I think we're in a completely different world right now. So I know that those 200 people will be scrubbed. That's called a phase 2 trial. These are people who actually are have a disorder, are known to be in hospital, but it's only 200. Okay. So now knowing Merck and the company, which is called Ridgeback, that's working with them, they'll take it to the FDA, and the FDA will put, to Mike's point, real careful eye on what they've teased out of it, because 200 is just 200 and people, and they'll ask the safety question big time, and then they will encourage them more than likely to initiate a phase 3. Now, the phase 3 will be determined. The phase 3 is where you compare treatment with no treatment, and you generally try and do that pretty sizably. In this case, it's probably a 3 to 6 month period for that trial to initiate. And then from there, well, first of all, 3 months to go to the FDA, then another 3 months to initiate it. And then you have to enroll patients. So when you enroll the patients, you're probably talking, depending upon how many actually are in hospital, you're constrained. It could be as short as 3 months to 6 months. It could be as long as a year to enroll them all. So best guesstimate, the first solid results out of this, 18 months down the line. And then the way that the FDA has been working now is approvals just rolling out really fast. Once you've got the data, the approval will come fast. So I would guesstimate, and please don't hold me to this, the best guesstimate is finishing that phase 3 is 18 months, and then after that, probably 6 months before it actually hits the marketplace. But that's on a whole new world. And as I say to you, 18 months ago, I would have said it's going to be a 5 to 8 year period.
And you would expect with that timing, they would have tested whatever variety of variants exist during that time frame?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. Merck's very conscious of this. And remember, one of the things about Merck is it actually was one of the leaders in vaccines and is not part of the vaccine flow at the moment. So this will become a very high profile program within Merck because frankly, they've missed the boat getting a vaccine. Now they need to actually come out there with something different.
Great. Thank you.
Mary Jane?
So, Dr. Levin, I just wanted to ask you about the monoclonal antibodies. How often are they being used? Like, do you have any idea, like percentage-wise, like if somebody, especially in the population like over 65, if they come down with COVID, I've been reading that it's really important that they seek the monoclonal very early in the treatment because it's much more successful than trying to give it, once they're in ICU.
Mary Jane, you're quite correct. There's several variants of monoclonal right now. Regeneron, Lilly are 2 examples, but there are others. And the evidence that we saw was particularly, for example, when President Trump became sick, he got it literally the day afterwards. He was in hospital and was getting a transfusion according to what we know now. We didn't know it at the time, but what we know now. That has been repeated on many occasions, and it's clear that acute administration of the monoclonals is a very, very good idea for those who are hospitalized and are categorized or at high risk for complications from COVID. So, quite frankly, your question was how often is it being used? It's actually not noted anywhere. I asked that very question myself, Mary Jane. It was like when you asked me about the kids, when are they going to get their vaccines? People were not talking that much about it. They still aren't talking about it. I'm not sure why. I need to go and sort of dig into that a little bit. But I am confident that you do see at least a proportion of the major centers using it as part of the protocols for people over the age of 65.
Yeah, I recently, just last week, sent somebody to the ER for, it was a person who was overweight, diabetic, hypertension, had all the comorbidities you could think of. And she came down with COVID, and she's better. And, it's an IV infusion. So people need to know about it. It's, anybody sitting on the council, you have anybody who's over 65 who comes down with COVID, the monoclonal antibody is like really crucial. Like in the very beginning, it really makes a big difference. And apparently it shortens the course of the disease too. So, and it saves lives.
Yeah, it's actually, it's not the same disorder, but when you get a snake bite, you get an injection of the serum. That's exactly it. You're getting a monoclonal antibody against the snake if you snake bite pain. And it fights it off. There's no question. This is old technology, but it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it appears to be a good treatment for people in the early phase of the illness. So
yes.
A lot of people don't know about it. Keep it in your pocket.
Well, I'll have a chat. It's good to hear that. Thank you, because I'll have a chat with both Lily and Regeneron and tell them at least one instance how they might be making a mistake by not making more of this.
Hey, Mary Jane, when that person went, did they offer it to them, or did somebody like you? Did you help demand it?
Yes, you demand it. You go in and
Okay.
you can call your PCP and say, hook me up with wherever they're given monoclonal antibodies. And that's what this friend of mine did. And, I think she got it up in Bristol Hospital, went to the ER that night, and sick as she was, she's doing better. But I personally don't think she would have made it because of all her other problems, So
I have a series of friends and family that have gone, and nobody's ever offered that to them.
people don't know about it. That's the thing. People just, it's not out there, and it should be out there. People should.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up tonight.
Yeah, it's a good thing to have in your repertoire.
Any other questions for Dr. Levin?
Real quick. Dr. Levin, there was some reports about folks that have had COVID, and then the first shot, it triggers more of an immune response like the second shot that people are experiencing when they haven't had COVID. And have you heard any, I just saw a report a couple of weeks ago that the people who get the third shot, it's like getting that super booster, and they get a very strong immune response. Have you heard, or is there any news out there of folks that have gotten really sick from that third shot and maybe shouldn't have taken this or the second shot because it was reacting to them almost like it was a third shot? Have you heard anything?
No, I've not. It's a big question, but this goes back to the 31 million. Amongst the 31 million, there are a lot of people who've had COVID and they were then vaccinated. So the bulk, there is no concerted evidence that has been published showing that there is a risk to having that second vaccine post-COVID. Now, the caveat to that is that nobody can tell me yet whether how many weeks, months after you've had COVID do you get no reaction. Do you know what I mean? There's no, so I don't think that study's out yet, or it will be coming out, I'm sure of that. But I don't have any evidence to say that. One thing we do know is that people who had COVID and then have the vaccination subsequently have not seemed to have a huge number of side effects.
To know. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Levin? Thank you, Dr. Levin.
Thanks,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Levin.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to item number 5, which would be an update from our health director, Lisa Morrissey.
Hi, Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Good evening, Lisa. How are you?
Good evening. So before I get started, I have to give some kudos to Dr. Levin, who probably did one of the best explanations of cohort studies, RCTs, and person time heard in a long time. So thank you for that, because those are very complex topics, and he did a really great job of breaking it down. I might have to steal that from you, Dr. Levin. So to go ahead and to give the COVID-19 update as far as the vaccinations, I'm very pleased to report that we did start our first week of COVID-19 vaccinations. On Saturday, we had our first clinic and we had 500 people vaccinated, the majority of whom were from daycare providers, school teachers from the Milford and Washington area. By all accounts, we had a very successful clinic. I think today we got a lot of thank you emails and a lot of thank you calls from people who were really excited to be vaccinated at home. To that effect, I'm also very excited to announce that we received another 600 doses of COVID-19 vaccine from the state for our clinics this week. And we're also we're waiting to hear about additional doses of vaccine coming in. One of the comments that we get from feedback from both our local hospital and the state was the size of our clinic and the volume that we're able to put an hour. So our throughput is about 120 people an hour, which is more than impressive when you think about the fact that we have very few paid staff and our clinics are 98% volunteers. So it really is amazing. And it's a testament to the heart of New Milford that we're able to accomplish such big numbers with a volunteer pool. So I'm very excited and encouraged by that. In addition to that, so I think some of you may have already heard in the mayor update that we're going to be continuing to vaccinate our daycare provider, our teachers over the next week and a half or so. We're almost done actually to staff. We thought it would take us about 2.5 weeks to get through all of the pre-K through 12 as well as daycare community. And it seems like we might actually finish it by day 11 or 12. So we may actually exceed our own goal that we placed on ourselves, and we'll be able to open up vaccines to younger crowds. We still do have a good percentage of people between 65 and 74 that have not been vaccinated. So we'll be making a push into that and to finish up our population over 75. So we're working really closely with the senior center to ensure that the folks that are still waiting to get vaccinated in those previous 1B groups are getting vaccinated. Additionally, we are also getting ready to start doing homebound vaccinations. So we have a test pilot on March 16th of homebound vaccinations, and then we'll be making a push into the community to do 1 or 2 days a week of homebound vaccinations to really help those folks who are unable to get to our clinic. And that's also really exciting and encouraging because we're ahead of schedule on that as well. So I think we're making really great progress on that. Our throughput for our vaccine clinics will be probably around 1,200 doses per week. So all great news on those fronts. And I heard someone was asking the question earlier in regards to the state opening up. So Connecticut begins to reopen on March 19th. Should I go through all of that? I don't want to rehash information that you may have already heard.
Yes, Lisa, if you could.
Certainly. So on March 19th, we begin reopening the state of Connecticut, and that really is going to start with the easing of restrictions. So let me tell you what will stay the same. So what stays the same is that face coverings, face masks are still going to be required in public. Bars that aren't serving food will still have to stay closed. 11 p.m. closing time will remain in place for events such as restaurants, entertainment venues, and indoor theaters will continue to have a 50% capacity. Large event venues, like stadiums, they'll get to open in April. And then starting on March 19th, restaurants can sit up to 8 people at a table. They're going to increase the operating hours for retail, libraries, personal services, indoor recreations, excluding theaters. Gyms and fitness centers, museums, aquariums, and zoos, all of those places, the capacity limits have been eliminated for. Houses of worships, office buildings, all of those capacity limits have been eliminated for. Gathering sizes have been revised as well. So for social and recreational gatherings at private residence, you can do 25 indoors and 100 outdoors. Recreational gatherings at commercial venues will be 100 indoors and 200 outdoors. All sports will be allowed to practice and compete again, and sports tournaments will be allowed, subject to Department of Health. And they're about to revise the travel advisory with modified from a requirement on those travel pieces and testing down to recommended guidances. On March 29th, capacity limits for early childhood classes will increase. So right now they're capped at 16 kids in those pre-K and early childhood settings. Now it'll go up to 20. And probably most exciting for all of the youngsters in the community, outdoor amusement parks will be able to reopen on April 2nd. And outdoor event venues can increase to a 50% capacity, and they'll be capped at 10,000 people. Indoor stadiums can also open at a 10% capacity. Summer camps and summer festivals are advised that they can begin the planning stages for opening up for the coming season. What does this translate to for us locally? We started having conversations about the prom, and now we're going to revise our conversations about the prom and start looking at that differently and try to get back to some more of the tradition instead of some of the revised. The same for graduations. We're also looking at providing additional support to our early child care providers as they start to increase the spots in their classrooms. So taking a look at all of those things. And then I'm sure now that this announcement, we're probably going to get a lot more requests for people to go and resume events outdoors in the town, especially using town parks. So those are really where we are with the state reopening. We're getting closer and closer. I know that there was also a question in regards to why isn't it happening faster? And, it really does come up down to, it really is a lot of it's with the vaccine, not having enough supply of that. And in my conversations with the mayor, we've all talked about, how fast you can go, how many can we vaccinate? And I have to tell you that my answer as well as the state when they ask me how much can we increase, I don't know. How much vaccine do you think you guys can send me? I don't know. Vaccine do you think we can get? And that really is big challenges that we do have, particularly for our frontline employees. So our frontline employees, they tend to have significantly more health disparities, and they're suffering from institutional health disparities, which puts them at a greater risk. If you take a look at some of those socioeconomic factors, they actually lower the age of risk for severe illness and death than some of the other socioeconomic groups. So when you take a look at all of those factors, it really does play a part in as to how quickly we can open up. And I do know that from listening to the governor's message and participating in those calls, the more vaccine that we actually get into, we do get into those younger age groups, especially where our frontline employees are in, the closer we get to opening completely up. So that is the COVID-19 vaccine update, and I will turn it over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Lisa? Chris?
Hi, yeah, just a statement, then a question. Just in terms of vaccine appointments, I know when 55 and over was let into it. A lot of people were complaining they could register on VAMS but couldn't get appointments. And I don't know how much an issue, but I should just share with the public. There's a state number, a phone number where I personally was successful. Within 8 minutes, I got through and got my appointments for both vaccinations at Danbury Fair Mall. So, and that number is 860-488. No, that's not it. No, yeah, I'm sorry, 860-881-2677. And ask for Michelle because she's really helpful.
I'm sure Michelle will be happy you just gave her name out.
Yeah. The other question I have for you, Lisa, is, the term follow the science is well used these days. In things, these restrictions like restaurant closing times, where is this? And I understand these aren't your rules. So if you can't answer, I would understand. But do you have any idea where the science is in that?
I sure do. And this is something that I feel that I've lived through. And many of my colleagues and I, we often joke about the PTSD of living through the summer and the fall. So, and here's what it is. When you take a look, when we're seeing clusters of cases, which are really synonymous, one of the places that you're going to see those happening, especially from when we're looking at the numbers from the summer and from the fall, really, they were happening in restaurants. And then when people were in restaurants later, there's not really a lot of food being consumed. There's more alcohol being consumed in those establishments. And it tends to be not necessarily the restaurants that you're going to go sit down and have a dinner and they're closing up at 10 o'clock. It has more so to do with licensed food service establishments, and a bar isn't licensed any different than a restaurant from the public health standpoint. So if you have a restaurant that serves some food, they can stay open until closing times for bars, which was leading to people. And when people were drinking more, they were less likely to sit in their chairs, they're likely to observe some people get very happy and very enamorous after they've been drinking and late. And what we really were seeing uncontrolled crowd sizes and a lot more passing of COVID-19. We were seeing the transmission rates really increase with that. When we did institute those restrictions as far as the cutoff time established, it did have a significant impact for the local public health departments in our caseloads and the number of clusters that we were seeing at these establishments.
So we did actually track COVID cases back to a particular restaurant.
Oh, absolutely.
Person being in that restaurant after a particular time?
Absolutely. We would see multitudes of cases that were coming out of these establishments. And, there was a lot of conversations that happened because it's really, from outside of the public health, make a distinction of bar and restaurant, right? I mean, because if I asked you to describe for me a bar, every single person on this call could describe what a bar was. But the way that the regulations work, a bar and a restaurant are licensed exactly the same way inside of the food code. 11 o'clock, most of your sit-down table service restaurants were closed. And that was really to try to not have such a large impact on the businesses that were trying to do the right thing while imposing limits on the businesses that were staying open till 1 a.m. and 2 a.m. and really were driving a lot of those case counts.
Great, thank you.
Stephanie?
I'm sorry, Pete, Lisa broke up a little bit during her points. If I could ask her to email me the points she was discussing, I could put them in the minute, please.
Absolutely, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa? Mike?
Yeah. Hey, Lisa, it's Mike. I have a question on masks. I was told today by one of my coworkers that at recess, their kids have to wear masks in 5th grade, I think it was. Is that something that you guys can relax pretty soon? I mean, these poor kids are wearing masks all day long and they go outside. It just seems like I mean, you said follow the science. Was there a lot of kids getting COVID by playing at recess outside without masks, or is that just being overcautious?
So I wish that I could change some of these rules for you, but I do not have that type of sway over the governor's office. Otherwise, I would get right.
All recesses have to have masks, or is that
no? It is part of the state regulatory piece. They do have to wear the masks. So schools do have the authority to do small mask breaks. Overwhelmingly, we've heard throughout the state that small mask breaks are not always successful. They tend to cause more disruptions for classroom management than not. Superintendents do have that ability if they wanted to do short mask breaks. And I would liken this similarly to our youth that are playing sport, to they're up and down running on the basketball court. They're, playing soccer, they're doing other things, and they're also required to wear masks for that. So it is keeping in line with that same policy.
But have you guys done we're supposed to follow science. Have you done studies of athletes working out in masks for prolonged periods and there's any negative effects? I know that I coach track at the high school. And we finally got allowed to have meets, and I was told that the kids had to wear a mask indoors. I couldn't imagine running a 2-mile indoor in a mask all out. And so I forbid it. We aren't competing. It was just not something that I was willing to do. And has there been studies? Because, if a mask is fitting properly, air's not going in and out at a rate that for 15 minutes or whatever time period it takes to run a long race, it just seems hard, especially with a lot of females at that age that have low iron counts because of starting to menstruate and not and their body aren't adapted. And when you have a low iron count, you're not carrying nearly enough oxygen to your muscles. And I've seen it where kids just basically pass out from it. So I just wonder why we're not looking at, health. We're only looking at health from COVID, but what about health from other things and some of the problems for that these rules are being instituted?
And so I would point to a couple of things. One, so there are some smaller short terms. Mind you, we haven't had widespread mask wearing before COVID-19. So we do have some small studies that really take a look at the efficacy of wearing and any detrimental health. And overwhelmingly, they did not find any. They're actually on the CDC and FDA website where they talk about that. They also talk about the types of masks that should be worn for athletes to decrease the risk of having an adverse reaction to that, and the types of sports that should be reconsidered from play because of the increased oxygen load necessary from all of the strenuous exercise. I would also say one thing that we do know for sure is that when you are doing strenuous exercise and breathing, that it does increase the risk of COVID-19 because of the increased respiration rate. And so there are two ways to look at that, and if it comes down to the concern really being that the aerobic exercise is really creating an additional stress that may not be worthwhile, then eliminating that, temporarily while we are still in the pandemic may be the way to go, as opposed to saying that we're going to forego the mask, because like I said, we do know that the increased respiration does help the virus, transmit more easily.
But you're right. So according to that, your theory, has that been thrown out? Because I own a health club and we've had people call us and say, I had COVID, I was in your gym, and we traced it, called the people and contact them, and no one got it from our gym. So, with this mitigation that we did with 15 feet space in between cardio equipment and whatnot, we had no spread. And I don't know what, and I did talk to your coworker, and she said that no gyms in New Milford had any COVID spread in the gym, yet they still forced us to put the mask on even after we're doing all these rules.
So,
and
Maybe that's why.
And so I just want to know, was there study that showed that?
Really small sample size when we look at populations overall. And there is not going to be a situation where any regulation is going to be town specific when you're talking about population health to that. So it would really, it would be much more broader than that. And again, and having had a multitude of experience in working with gyms, those mitigation measures are there, for example, to reduce the risk. And it's using multiple mitigation strategies that helps us keep COVID in check, not picking the ones that we want to use. So they're all tools in our toolbox to help mitigate the risk. And there are gyms that have had significant spread, and there's other gyms that have had very limited to no spread. And it really just comes about their implementation of all of those mitigation strategies.
So you're punishing the gyms, and I'm not saying I know it's not your policy, but you're punishing the gyms that did everything right because of some gyms that weren't doing anything right. And I don't know if that's fair. But another comment I have is we have a doctor that wanted to work out without a mask because he had his vaccine and it was 2 weeks past his second shot. And to me that, it seems to me that, there's risks in both, risks in working out with a mask and risks to not having the mask on. But if you had your shot, it seems to me that you shouldn't have to wear the mask.
So the CDC, I don't know if you've seen it in the news, the CDC is issuing guidance on when is it appropriate to not wear your mask. And then that information really is when you're in a private setting, a private indoor congregate setting, and everybody that you were with has had their full course of vaccinations and it's been post 2 weeks. So that is being updated. And like everything, and very similar to what Dr. Levin said, the more information that we do get, we're able to update the policies and the best practices accordingly. But again, I would just remind you that we literally are a year into this. So a year ago, I should say 14 months ago, these weren't even conversations. These weren't even
tested. I know 14 months ago, I was told I was going to shut down for 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 3 months later, I still shut down. I'm sorry, I'm upset. It's hard to see your life savings go down the drain because of what's going on. And a lot of people don't understand that because they aren't in the same situation. So they're all be safe, be safe, be safe. For the small business owners, it's hard to be safe anymore because it's just killing us. You'll get your PPP money. Well, we're still waiting on that, even though we applied months ago. It's just a frustrating thing. And I don't think the people in the state understand how difficult it is. The unemployment rate in Connecticut is in the top 10 and the bottom part of the top 10. And increase in unemployment rate has a lot of negative health effects. Yet the state doesn't care about that health. They only care about one health. And I know it's not your rule, but it just seems that no one seems to care about the small businesses the way they should.
I understand your frustrations and I apologize for it. So, and I know that at times it does feel like it can be a little bit handed as the state really does look at policies to try to look at the whole spectrum of the population. And I will bring up your concerns when we have our meetings with the state.
Thank you. I'm sorry. It's just frustrating.
Any other questions for Lisa? Thank you, Lisa. And thank you and the health team, our IT team, senior team, and all our volunteers for the clinic Saturday and all the clinics coming up. So thank you, Lisa.
Awesome job.
Yeah, especially the volunteers you talked about on the vaccination clinic. That's awesome.
Yeah, amazing.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Moving on, item 5A, mayor's comments.
Thank you, Katie. Real quick, staying on COVID as we talk at every meeting, giving you the state in totality, those that have confirmed COVID cases. And this is by no means how many people currently have COVID, but it's the way the state tracks the numbers. So the state of Connecticut is at 267,636. Litchfield County is at 10,357, which is up 96 from Friday. Hospitalizations for the whole county is at 4, which was down 2 from Friday. New Milford is at 1,810, which is up 9 from Friday. And as we ask each and every time, if you are elderly or a person with an underlying condition, example, diabetes, pulmonary or heart condition, and you haven't had your vaccine, both doses, please only go out if you have to. If you're exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19, please do not go to work. If your child is exhibiting any symptoms, please do not send them to school. If your symptoms continue, please contact your primary doctor and please get tested. On the vaccine front, for veterans, the state of Connecticut and Veterans Affairs are allowing any veteran of any age to get vaccinated. They are having walk-in clinics. The next one for this week, for March 10th through the 12th, is at West Haven Annex, 200 Edison Road in Orange. And it's from 12 to 4 p.m. And in their walk-ins and no appointments are necessary. Again, want to thank Lisa and her team, as we just talked about before, with a great job they did Saturday. As she had said before, 500 of our teachers and childcare facility teams were vaccinated, and more to come. Update for numbers that we have, and Lisa updates these towards the end of the week. So from last week in New Milford, 87% of the people the age of 75 had received their first dose. 51% of the people age 65 to 74 have received their first dose, and 16% of the town received their first dose. This does not include the clinic that we had on Saturday. And I'll have updated numbers towards the end of the week. Also, for those that still want to volunteer, we've had a tremendous outpouring of our volunteer base to help with these clinics, as Lisa has said before. Couldn't do it without our volunteers. Please, if you're interested, please call 860-355-6059, or you can email nmvolunteers@newmilford.org. And that way, if you'd like to volunteer, we're looking for vaccinators, looking for people to take the VAMS registration when they come in. We're looking for runners. We're looking for anybody that can help. We'd love to have you do that. Also, pretty quickly, as Lisa had talked about, some of the things that are happening on March 22nd, the governor is going to expand availability to the 45 to 54 cohort. On April 12th, they're going to expand it to the 35 to 44. And then May 3rd, they're going to expand it to 16 to 34. So those will be the cohorts so far. In different news, today is International Women's Day. And International Women's Day is a global holiday celebrated annually on March 8th to commemorate the cultural, political, and socioeconomic achievements of women. Thank you to all the women who have made New Milford a better place because of all of your efforts. And I can attest firsthand with my wife and daughters. I can't appreciate everything that women do for us in society. Unbelievable what they do. So next, I'd also like to thank our New Milford High School music director, David Sizdek, as he has ordered the new uniforms, and with the help of the New Milford Town Council and our Board of Finance, we're able to take surplus monies that we've approved, and the Milford Athletic Department got their uniforms, and the band has gotten theirs too. So it's exciting news. Also like to thank Alessandra Omenia, the director of the New Milford High School Theater Program. Is this year they're going to do the Addams Family. It will be virtually. If you'd like to give to the cause because they weren't able to do tickets last year, we'll put on our social sites how you can donate to the cause. So thank you to them. Also this past week, in celebration of New Milford's diversity, we raised the Bosnian flag for Bosnian independence and those of Bosnian heritage. On economic development news, New Milford has a couple new businesses I'd like to talk about a little bit. First is Max BMW, which is on 493 Danbury Road, which is the old Mark Ford building. And they are a very big regional player in BMW motorcycles. I spoke to Max and his team. They do a wonderful job, and they're going to be bringing 25 jobs to New Milford, and they're going to be looking to actually increase those with the increased expansion. So we're very excited to have them, and thank you, Max, and your team for investing here. Also, stopped in today for the soft opening of Jersey Mike's, spoke to their investment team and the franchise owner. Also spoke to their manager, who already has hired 30 people and looking for another 12 more people. It's a 7-day-a-week operation, and thank you for them investing in New Milford as well. And Lisa went through all of the advisories, so we appreciate that. And that's all I have. Thanks, Katie. Stephanie had a question.
Stephanie, you have a question?
It needs to be unmuted.
Unmute. Hold on.
That's all. Just needs to be unmuted. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome. Okay. Item 6, appointments and reappointments. I move the following. The Planning Commission. Appointment of George Sam, filling a vacancy left by Joe Girardeau, term to be March 8th, 2021 to November 30th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Okay. Item 7, Parks and Rec. I move that for their request to transfer $34,000 from account 104-50500-51001, which is the Parks and Rec personnel self-sustaining, into account number 104-5055-53403, which is the Parks and Rec contractual self-sustaining to cover the cost of their program's contractual personnel.
Second.
Thank you, Walter. Mike, can you unmute Dan Calhoun? Hi, Dan. Can you give kind of an update to the council on why you're doing this?
Sure. Can I also, Laura Murphy's here to answer questions?
Absolutely.
Also?
Yeah.
Mike, can you undo Laura Murphy's?
Okay, I'm going to just say something quick and I'll turn it over to Laura. Thank you for having us here again this evening. Due to COVID is a big part of it, and the way we've had to change and adapt, we have done a lot more contractual hiring than we have in the past. And because of COVID, we weren't able to offer the same amount of programs and the same types of programs that we've always done. So we're requesting that change over to the contractual side to cover these additional costs. And I'll let Laura speak on what program she's added to the contractual line. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Hello. So over the summer, I'm sure you've heard we had the drive-in theater. We had our virtual trivia nights. Events like this were part of our contractual, along with our floral arrangement classes that were pop-up. We added a new dog training program in addition to our other contractual services, which was karate, horseback riding. So we did add a few more things. And as we are able to open up, we're kind of now reverting back into our personnel account with a new budget. So because of not really being able to hire or really using our personnel for our smaller programs with all of the protocols, we really relied more on the contractual services. With now everything, like I said, loosening up, we're kind of swishing back for this coming year. So that is my explanation on that transfer.
Anybody have any questions? We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
Laura.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura
you.
and Dan.
Have a great evening.
You
You
too.
too. Item number 8, Mayor's Office, land donation. I'd like to move that we discuss. This got changed. This is for discussion of a possible land donation from Jody Lard at 110 Housatonic Avenue, Lot 45.
Thank you. Is Maria on? Maria, if you are on, can you raise your hand?
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Second.
There's no, it wasn't a motion, Stephanie.
Nope, not a motion.
It was
sorry.
just a talk about
Conversation. Okay,
possible.
gotcha. Yeah.
Discussion.
Maria, is that her name?
Yep.
I don't
see a Maria in the participants panel here.
Okay. Okay. So I received an email from Maria, and she wanted to see if there was any interest at all in the town taking this parcel. And for the town council, you have the map from the town assessor. There's one page. You also have, actually, there's a couple photos from the GIS. You also have a letter from Arcadis, which talks about the environmental screen for the property on Housatonic Avenue. You also have a field card.
Can I ask you a question? Who's Maria? This says it's from Jody Lard.
So Maria is part of the family. When you look at the house thing, she's a co-owner of the property.
Okay.
Husband and wife.
Oh, okay.
And so she actually has 2 offers on the property. And
Okay.
she and her husband would rather donate this parcel in memory of a family member. But if the council chose not to accept the land parcel, then she would sell the property.
Is this the same parcel we discussed a couple of years ago?
Correct.
Okay.
So does anybody have any questions on the property? Tom?
So Pete, I haven't gotten a chance to get down to all the details, but is this property is clean?
This is the
Is
one
it-
that's across from the B and
No, I know what it is. I'm looking
Oh.
at it on Google Earth. I'm just wondering about the environmentals.
So according
there's a
to
letter in there, Tom.
I'm
according to
making my way
Russell,
there.
according to Russell DiLorenzo, yes. As much as you can assess it without doing multiple phased
Tom, if you recall,
Yeah,
we had quite a conversation a couple of years ago about this. Kathy Castagnetta was the planner at that time, and we asked a lot of questions about the possibility of the contamination, considering it's just a short distance away from a large contaminated property.
Right.
I kind of look at it just for edification of the council. We now have Native Meadows, which is across the river, which is 20 some acres that has frontage all across it. So to me, it's same river, same bankment, but it's up to the council.
What's the total tax revenue on this?
I believe it's $1,700. You look, I put it in there. Let me just take a look. It's in your docket. It's $1,718.
When do they need a decision by? Could we-
She would like a decision as soon as possible because there is 2 offers on the property.
Well, I mean, do we have any specific plans for this?
It would be up to the council, but my thoughts would be this would be part of you're looking at the river frontage. Also, we're going to be looking in that area on the other side of the street as we do our redevelopment processes there. So this would be something if you're looking as kind of a long-term thing. But then again, as I said, it's up to the council.
Okay.
Dave?
Yeah, several things. First of all, I'd like to dig up the minutes from the meetings prior to that Katie referenced.
Okay.
If we could have that sent to everybody.
Absolutely.
I agree with Tom as well. I mean, I'm not prepared to make a decision tonight. And Mr. Mayor, you mentioned redevelopment across the street. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. So when we've done the Camoin study that was done by the town, and we've had several public meetings prior to COVID.
Yep.
One of the thoughts was looking at that whole area on Youngsfield and up above about how we look at doing that. So one of the strategies was the redevelopment of that area, including the DPW all the way down. So if that was going to be the case, you have another piece of property that's across the street. That may be part of what could be a redevelopment piece, or you could keep that as a recreational land. I believe it's 1.72 acres, but that would be something part of the process as we move forward.
Could we have the minutes sent to us from the?
Absolutely.
Katie, was it more than one meeting or just one?
We discussed it a couple of times. It
Yeah, it
came
was
to
two
us
meetings.
like it did now, and we wanted to look it over, and then we met again and we talked about it. And Kathy spoke to us. I remember it very well. And there was a lot of conversation about how close it is to the brownfield area and that it's one small piece. And the person the letter that Kathy had, I think it might be the same one that's in the packet.
It's the same one, Katie.
Yeah, it was shown to be clean, but it wasn't really quantified as to the way that we were asking for us, which is why that's why we didn't act on it then. So I think you should review the minutes so we all know, because we have new people here now.
Yeah,
Doug has his hand up, by the way.
That would help.
Mike or
Well,
Doug?
I'm not ready to make a decision either, but I think that anyone that has questions needs to get them to the mayor, and we need to make a decision next meeting, because you can't keep putting this family off. Whether we're going to do it or not do it.
Well, it hasn't been before us for a couple of years, so it's not as if we put them off for 2
But
years.
now they have offers to sell. So let's get your questions in. Pete will answer them as best he can, or get the information, and let's commit to making a decision, because as we keep putting things off, it doesn't help his family.
Mike, we made a decision when it came before us before. And and to best of my knowledge, we have not heard from this family in that time. Is that right, Mayor? They haven't been asking us.
They have come back and asked because they have offers on the property. Does the town, before they decide to execute that, their original wish was to donate to the town, but if the town chooses not to, then they will sell the property.
But they haven't been asking us in between our last couple of years ago and now.
They're asking us now.
Yeah, I'm just saying, by next meeting, we should be able to give him an answer. That's all.
Yes, I think so, Mike.
Totally.
I think
That's,
so.
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for 2 weeks for us to just do our due diligence. Now, I'm starting to recall this letter and reading it again from a few years ago. So there was quite a lively discussion we had then, and I'm sure once everybody sees the rest,
So
we
we'll
may
all
have
get the
again.
minutes of those meetings and we'll read it over and put it back on the agenda, Mayor? Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, I trust if we have any questions, direct them to you, Pete?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks.
No, I would agree, and I think that we need to close this next meeting so the family can react to it. So, Pete, if you could reach out to them and ask them if they could give us a 2-week reprieve to review.
Sure will.
And make a final decision at the next meeting. I think we all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Got it.
Oh, Mary Jane.
Yes, I think we need to make a good, safe decision and a reasonable decision, and regardless of whether the family wants you to do it next week. I mean, really, come on.
Yep.
Let's do the right thing for the town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's That's why I said the 2 weeks. This way we can do our due
Yeah,
diligence.
I think that's a great idea. Give us a little extra time. So,
We'll table this until the next meeting.
And I'll let them know and get you guys the information that you're requesting.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to table this for till the next meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a motion or just,
Just
No.
table.
Just
Okay.
table.
all right,
Put it on the table.
okay.
Leave it there. Item number 9 is the mayor's office update and discussion on Riverfront Phase 2 and update and discussion on Riverfront Phase 3.
And Mike, could you unmic Jack Healy, please?
Hello.
Hi, Jack.
Hey, Mayor.
Can you provide an update to the council on the first one, which would be the Phase 2, which is the sidewalks from Young's Field through Patriots Way?
Okay. Where we stand on that is, I think if you drive on Patriots Way, you'll see that all of the containers have been removed, the snow plows have been removed, and that Public Works has been clearing the banks and taking down any hazardous trees and dead trees along that stretch. They'll continue to do so until this spring. We have, at that time, the Public Works will construct an asphalt sidewalk on the path that's been on the drawing previously. It'll go up the south side of Patriots Way, go around the corner, then we'll shift and go across Patriots Way and go along the east side where the decorative lights are until it gets down to where the islands start, and then it will shift back to the west side of Patriots Way and continue till it gets to the sidewalk or the stairs that go down the bank to the fields. As part of that, the Public Works will clean up we'll be installing some new guardrails along the parking lot, trimming all the trees along the parking lot, and doing some patching and improving of the asphalt parking lot also.
Any questions so far on Phase 2?
Mayor, do we have didn't you have a slide? Didn't you have a picture of that? How it was
There
gonna
should
look?
be in your packet, there should be one.
I was looking for that. You had a nice representation.
Jack, what's the timing of this?
Let me see if I can pull that up, Katie, while Jack's talking.
Yeah.
Chris, we're planning on doing that. It's ongoing right now, but asphalt doesn't really come out until the middle of April. I would think we'd probably be doing it in May because we have to rent the sidewalk paver. That's not something we have. I've already made inquiries on that. We can rent the sidewalk paver for about $3,000 for a week, and that's more than enough time to construct the sidewalk. We have preliminary work to do as far as putting the base down and doing all the engineering, that part of it. So it's really something right now we're doing, and Mike's I know Mike's listening, that Mike's been doing with the staff as it gets open time. But once it starts to warm up, they'll really get at it and finish it, I would think, by mid to late May.
Okay, I wonder any events scheduled down there. I think like Goat Days is going to be later May. Might there be any conflict there?
We can check the schedule, Chris. I mean, that's Mike and I were going to sit down and over the next week or two plan the project out. We just did the roads today and the chip seals and everything. So Mike and I were going to sit down and put the final schedule together. We've been talking with the mayor about the funding. So I would think by this Friday or next Friday, when we have our mayor meeting, we can finalize that schedule.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you.
Pete?
And then Dave, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, again, on sidewalks, I asked back in September about the sidewalks at Pettibone and again on Route 7, and that the work would start in the spring or summer. Is that still a go?
Jack?
The sidewalk on Route 7, just had a call with DOT on Friday. They've been doing this. They're been issued a PO to do the surveys along Route 7. Beta Corporation. In the capital plan for 2021 is the remainder of the money to do the engineering on that. Dave, and in 2022, that would be the construction as part. That's our portion of it. The actual engineering costs are over $400,000. We pay 20% of that. So you'll see that we've requested the money for that. And then following year, the sidewalks are estimated to be $1.4 million, and we'll be requesting the town's portion of that for 2022. And as far as Pettibone, we just did some final design changes that need to be made on that. Jason Hyde is working on that. We changed the construction material for the sidewalks around Pettibone to asphalt. That keeps us within the allotted funds. The only other part of that to help keep in the funds, we are purchasing a hydro seeder, and so the contract won't be doing the hydro seeding. The Public Works Department will do the hydro seeding. That keeps the project within the budget estimate.
And when's that scheduled for?
That's scheduled for this summer, Dave.
Oh, that one is. Yep. And one more thing, just a comment. Thank you very much for sending letters in the neighborhood of Vista and Gregory and the like about the upcoming road construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody's asking me questions about it. I'll be giving you a call tomorrow.
And Jack, can you talk also about the stone dust walkway that will be at Native Meadows to Veterans Bridge?
And I think, Mayor, that you had a depiction of that Jason provided you.
Yep.
What we're going to do is we want a way to connect the Bridge Street to Native Meadows without walking down Route 7. We're going to construct, Public Works is going to construct I'll call it a pathway rather than a sidewalk that will go on the east side of the guardrails on Route 7 and cross over the drainage swale and connect to some of the paths in Native Meadows. That in keeping with Native Meadows and keeping it environmentally, somewhat sound, we're going to use a stone dust path.
Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
That keeps the cost down. Stone dust is something that we would replenish every year or two. It's something that I've used at other locations. It's a very good material. Once it's down and you roll it, it stays firm. And then it's used. You can walk on it. You can bicycle on it. So we've got our applications. We're talking to DOT right now because where you see that pipe, that's in the DOT right. You can see the right of way there. It's in the right of way. And so we're talking to them about a permit from them. I don't expect that'll take very long. We also have made out an application to go to Inland Wetlands to have their approval of the pipe also. We expect to do this work as soon as we get the permits. We expect to start doing that work.
Any questions on this phase?
No, looks good.
Actually, just one, Jack. Yeah, Jack, not that I'm questioning your guys' expertise because it's, I can't compare to that, but the stone dust path, I think you mentioned it might need maintenance every year. Park and Rec uses, I don't know what they use in Sega Meadows, but I think that's gone 5-8 years or something. I think they were doing their first maintenance on that.
Okay.
I don't know, might be something to see what they're using over there.
Well, that one right there, Chris, they're actually going to be putting something similar down.
Okay.
Or the 1.1 miles they're going to use.
Yep.
Right now, there is nothing like that. It's just an old fire trail.
Well, I think they had put down some stone, I think, when that was originally first opened up.
That was the parking lot?
No, even along the trail, you went right through the meadow, there was something there, but, because I remember equipment back there when they first did it, but okay, all right, yeah.
Hey, Chris, if you want to see what it looks like, I don't know if you pass through Litchfield, go to their community field, and there's a path that goes around the baseball field. That's stone dust, and when I say maintenance, it's really to keep it so it's flat and it stays nice and firm. You take a roller and you roll it once a year.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Okay. Yep. That sounds pretty simple. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mike?
Yeah, just a simple one. I know we have the Riverfront Revitalization Committee, and I just want to make sure that any work we do isn't going to have to be changed when we go a different direction with that area. So, this doesn't seem like it would ever be an issue, but the sidewalks on Patriots Way, is that Patriots Way gonna stay the?
So Mike, Jack, have you been speaking with the Riverfront Revitalization Committee?
Yeah, I attend I think most of their phone calls, and I talk with them. In fact, I think we're supposed to schedule a walk. We were scheduled to take a walk, but I had a couple weeks off there. So once I got back, we're rescheduling that walk to go over that.
Just hate to see something done and then ripped down.
And then just for everyone's edification, when you add in the Native Meadows phase, then up Patriots Way, the goal also is to bring the connectivity, as we talked about before, where you'll then be able to go into the downtown with a walk, because that's what this has all been about, bringing the connectivity of the downtown to the river. If you go up Bank Street and then across Main Street and then down Bridge Street, back down to Veterans Bridge, that's a 1.1 mile extension of the river walk and availability. So then on top of that, you're going to add the Park and Rec piece, which is another 1 or 1.2 miles that they'll be working on. So we'll be adding an additional almost over 2 miles worth of area where people can walk and enjoy New Milford.
Great.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I just have a quick question. So we have the Riverfront Revitalization, which was just mentioned. And then we also have the River Walk. And then bike and river trails, correct? Is that one too many?
Nope, there's 2 committees. One is not active as of right now. That's the Bike and River Trail Committee.
Okay. So this that you're doing, the Riverfront, which is this great connection, which is adding, like you said, 2 miles of walk. That's part of the Riverfront Revitalization.
That's part of us doing the extension of the Riverwalk.
Just you, not you, the town.
Correct.
Just doing it because we have the meadows and the whole thing. Okay.
Correct.
I understand. No, I just
as part of the Camoin study
that
was done. Part of the Camoin study was bring the connectivity from the river up into the downtown. So that's what we were trying to accomplish and a minimum budget. We do have the funding that we've already applied for that walk to go up Patriots Way. And then the town council and Board of Finance approved the Park and Rec monies that we're taking out of waste management for the 1.1 or 1.3 mile Stone Dust in Sega Meadows walk.
Right. So all of this is, to rejuvenate and point out the great riverfront that we have here in town.
Absolutely.
So it's not necessarily just a specific part of one of those programs. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I think when you add all that stuff together, it becomes very, an interesting walk. So you can go on different courses, whether it be Stone Dust onto a sidewalk, and then you can go over a bridge, and then you can go up into the downtown. And if you want, stop and eat at the restaurant, buy from the stores. If you want to get your steps in, you can get your steps in. And they're all different elevations. So you have a flat surface, you have a hill surface. You have different different parts of the location, from pure nature and native meadows to a wonderful river view, and then into a very historic downtown. So I think it makes for a wonderful walk. And then if you just want a special, just walk in nature, you go to Sega Meadows.
Wonderful.
Any other discussion? Walter?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everybody.
Good night,
Have a good one.
Good
Everyone
night.
have a good evening.